Hello, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to make a video really just explaining a more in-depth of what I think about the books that I've read for the past 4 to 6 months. So this is gonna be kind of like a book review video, a chill video. I'm sitting on my bed for that reason, so it can be chill. The books that I read were The Vegetarian by Kang, Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami, After Dark, and No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai, which I guess was on book TikTok, but it didn't show up on my TikTok. I picked up this book only because I was interested in the synopsis in the back. First book that I read was Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami, and I had read this book because it was from a YouTube video by a YouTuber who was reading books that Namjoon recommended. And obviously I'm a fan of BTS. Reading this book was kind of like, it was very descriptive of the characters. I like how diverse the characters were in this book, and I like how when you read it, when I was reading this book, it felt like I was watching a movie. This was because of how accurate everything was depicted about a character. Facial expressions, movements, the atmosphere they were in when they were talking. It's funny because the first, I guess, quote right here on the top of the book, an insistently metaphysical mind bender. I think that like perfectly depicts this book. The way that this book was written was that it would alternate between two characters every other chapter. In the first chapter, it was about protagonist A. Second chapter was about protagonist B. Third chapter about protagonist A. I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought it was pretty interesting to read a book that was in that format. This first book, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't fully enjoy it. I wouldn't give it a 10. I think I gave it on my Instagram, I think I gave it an 8. Only because there were times in the book where I was reading it where it just felt long. And it wasn't because I wasn't interested in it. It was just more like I was waiting for like the next thing to happen, or like I felt like the next scene was going to be more interesting in the book. If you're looking for an insistently metaphysical mind bender, I would recommend Kafka on the Shore. The second book that I read was The Vegetarian, a novel by Kang. And this book literally has 185 pages. But in those 185 pages, follow the main character whose name is Young Hai. She is, I think, a middle-aged woman, like 30s, 40s, and she decides one day to not eat meat from these bizarre dreams that she starts having. The book really just shows the different people in her life and how they're affected by her choices. And I do think that in this book there's a lot of symbolism, like becoming independent and how it affects the people around you. But the book follows, I think, 4 perspectives. Bro, it's been a while. The book was in the perspective of her husband, her brother-in-law, and her sister. It never goes into Young Hai's perspective. It never goes into her. I would describe it as a slow progression of insanity. Like, you really follow her character and you really see how insane she becomes, or how the people around her, how insane they become. That's The Vegetarian by Kang. The third book that I read was by Haruki Murakami. It is titled After Dark. This book, even though I didn't give it a 10, I still enjoyed reading it. Like, that's weird. The books that I've read from him so far, which has only been 2, there's just something compelling about his writing. But when I was done reading it, I had to like really think, did I enjoy that? You were just hooked on throughout the whole story, and then towards the end, you didn't get what it was supposed to give. I do like the way that he writes. I just don't think I found the 10 out of 10 book from him for me. But After Dark was literally a book overnight. So throughout the book, literally when it starts, I think you start at like 11 o'clock p.m. and it goes through the whole night. So you go through 11 o'clock p.m., page 71, and you're at 1:18 a.m. and it has the timing at the top of the page. So that's pretty cool. You basically follow a 19-year-old girl named Mari and how she gets caught up in the nightlife and people that she meets. There's really not much to say. I mean, there's a lot to say about this book, but I feel like you would have to read it to really enjoy it. I don't think I would read it again, but it was a nice read, and I enjoyed just being engulfed in the book. A lot of the books that I've read, the 4 books that I've read so far have been like 7 or 8s, but it's okay. It's okay. Bound to linger in the mind. It did linger in my mind for like a good 2 days after I read it. I think I would want to read a second part to this book. It would have to be like more about her sister's life. It would have to be more about Mari's sister's life and why what happened to her happened. Yeah, that was Haruki Murakami, After Dark. And then the 4th book that I've read, which I've read not so long ago, was No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. I think that out of 10, it was like a 6. I didn't expect it to end the way that it did. And I'm not saying that every book should have a happy ending. The whole book was about the main character just explaining how tragic his life is and events that happened in his life that made him, I don't know, pessimistic. Certain events led to worse events, and how he wished that he wasn't in certain, and how he wished he wouldn't have put himself in certain positions that would lead him to worse positions. I would think from how the rhythm of this book was going in the beginning and in the middle that the end would lead up to some type of moral lesson. I think I enjoyed it more than I didn't enjoy it. At one point when I was reading this book, I was like, I think I felt like that before, but I would never say it, or I don't think I would ever write it down. And with that, that was the 4th book that I read. I just wanted to make a video to keep track of how certain books made me feel, what I thought about certain books. The book that I'm reading right now is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. That book has me hooked. I do not think that's gonna be 6, 7, or 8. I think that's gonna be a strong 9 or 10. After 4 books, I might have found my 10 or 9. And what's interesting is that it's Greek mythology. I wouldn't have thought that a Greek mythology book would probably be in the highs, because I'm not that into Greek mythology. Only because I feel like every time that I get into a story that pertains to Greek mythology, it's always like, oh, but you needed to know this before, and if you don't know this, then this doesn't make sense. But the way that this book is being written, I feel like I don't have to have prior knowledge of these characters so far. But other than that, that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it resourceful to start your reading journey if you want to. I'm going to end this video, because if I don't end this video will never end. Okay, alright, bye.